Now, the script that we use is a style first developed by the Roman Church's writing office in around the year 1425. The Spanish Church adopted this, but we made it heavier and more ornate than the Italian. So it's really an Italian writing style with a rather thick Spanish accent. It is not penmanship. It is a formal script of the church, so the lettering is actually drawn as much as written.
Beautiful.
Now, the pens we use here are quite different from those that would be used if we were still home in Europe. Almost all of the writing in Western society for centuries has been done with pens made from the wingtip feathers, the flight feathers, of geese. Here, we have no geese, so we have to use a variety of locally available feathers to make our pens. Right now, I am writing this with what would be considered extraordinarily unconventional by European standards. It is the flight feather of a peacock. Now, the ink needs to be described and explained somewhat, so you'll know how to care for this. The ink is both very ancient and very, very thick. The ink that we use on paper is the same basic formula as that which was developed by the ancient Egyptians roughly 3,700 years ago. The ink hasn't really changed, although of course our pens and our writing have changed rather markedly. The ink is a mixture of carbon dust, glue, and water. The carbon dust is called lampblack. It is the soot from the smoke, burning oil or tar. It's very thick, sticky, horribly messy if you should spill it, but it makes a very fine base for ink. The other ingredient is more exotic. It's called gum arabic. Gum arabic is the sap of the Acacia senegal tree that grows in Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. The sap is extracted from the tree, ground into a very fine powder, and mixed in with our carbon dust to make a powder ink. That is then taken, shipped, stored, and saved as a powder until we're ready to write. When we are, we take one part of the powder to an equal or slightly greater part of water, depending on how thick we might want it to be. Shake it rather energetically, and that's what I'm writing with. Now, the ink will require 3 to 4 minutes to thoroughly dry and cure. When it's dry, it will be water resistant, and it will never ever fade. It is, after all, carbon, and carbon doesn't fade. But it can be very easily smudged or smeared if the letters are rubbed even slightly, even after it's dry. Please remember, it is little more than carbon dust glued to the surface of the paper with a mild adhesive. It is not in the paper as a stain would be, but on the paper. It is a solid in suspension. So, to preserve this, allow it to thoroughly dry. I'll provide you with a folder in which to store it and carry it. And then when you get to any sort of an office supply company, have it laminated. That will preserve it lovely. But I hope